This year feels different. It feels more of business-like. It feels like they're taking it 10 times more serious. But here we are, rounding out the top 3, and guess who they have at number 3? Georgia. Without a single doubt in my mind, this is the most excited I've ever been for a video in probably about 3 or 4 months. You better get your popcorn, snack, or whatever you like to eat when you watch a video, because trust me, you're not going to miss this one. Why am I so excited though? Why am I so amped up? Well, number 1, we got to talk about the Quinn Ewers situation and what's going on there. Number 2, there's also viral news going around that Georgia's 5-star tight end, who's been committed there for over a year, he's decommitted and he's going to a new school. And last but not least, our third topic we're going to go over is ESPN has released their top 25 rankings and they are terrible. I'll give you a little sneak peek. You want to know how bad they are? Florida, let me repeat that, Florida is in the top 20. And also the number 1 team isn't Alabama or Georgia. I got a bone to pick with that. I'm excited. I'm feeling good. It's warm in the South. If you're in the South, I hope you're enjoying this warm weather. If you're up north, I believe it's snowing up there. So yeah, sucks to be y'all. You couldn't pay me to live up north. It's going to be a jam-packed video. All right, Matt Bubba. Oh yeah, by the way, if you're not subscribed to the channel, consider joining. It is 100% free. Doesn't hurt you whatsoever. You can always unsub later. All right, now, Matt, shut the crap up now. Without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, where do we want to start with this video? I'm going to say the main topic is definitely what's going on with Arch Manning and Quinn Ewers, just because it's at Texas, it's a big brand, so we'll save that for last. I'll say we talk about these rankings. Relatively simple. ESPN earlier today, they released their rankings, and let's take a look at them, starting with 25, working our way up. Nothing really catches my eye up until Wisconsin and A&M at 20 and 18th, tied for 18th. Considering A&M was complete trash last year, and you're still putting them in the top 20 just because of the name brand, I don't like that. I get it, they have talent, but they didn't even make a bowl game last year. I digress. Same thing for Wisconsin. Yeah, they weren't terrible, but they weren't good either. I don't really agree with that one. But the one that really gets to me the most is also tied for 18th. We got Florida. I believe it was only 2 days ago we talked about how pitiful Florida looked, especially in their spring game. They couldn't even snap the ball right. They couldn't score any points. They literally don't even have a quarterback who can run the show, and they're in the top 20. I mean, what are we doing? That is the worst one to me. Moving up along here, I also don't agree with Tennessee at number 12. Tennessee is definitely a top 10 team. I'm cool with the rest of 15 through 11, Utah, Florida State, Oregon, Oklahoma. They're all solid teams. Oklahoma may be a little too high. I would probably switch, I'd say Florida State and Oklahoma. But they're still in the same ballpark. I don't have a problem with it. And if you've been watching the channel for the past 2 years, you know I've said this since day one. Notre Dame should be banned from being ranked inside the top 10. They should be banned from the college football playoff, and they should also be banned from being ranked inside the top 10 because they are frauds, and they will never, let me repeat this, they will never, ever, ever in a million years win another college football championship. Mark it down. It's simple. They don't have enough talent, and if you don't have talent, you can't win championships. I don't take Notre Dame serious, and I will never take them serious until they prove me wrong. Here's the only thing you need to know about Notre Dame. Brian Kelly was laughed at because when he was at Notre Dame, he couldn't win the big game. He couldn't beat Nick Saban. And I tried telling people, well, the reason he can't do it is because he doesn't have talent. With that being said, do you really think it's a coincidence that Brian Kelly, in his first year at LSU rebuilding, beat Nick Saban? It's not. The problem at Notre Dame wasn't Brian Kelly. He was actually overachieving. The problem at Notre Dame is Notre Dame. That's a different conversation for a different day. You got Clemson at number 8, is what it is. Also USC, and then you got Michigan at number 6. I'm not the biggest fan of Michigan being at 6, but let's talk about this top 5, and then we'll speak on everything. At number 5, the overhyped and we're back Texas. I'm going to be honest, I don't have a problem if you want to put Texas at number 9 or number 10, but in the top 5? Come on, man. Continuing along here, number 4, we got the LSU Tigers, and yeah, I don't really have a problem with that. Whether you want to believe this or not, whether you want to accept it, LSU, they're going to be relevant for the next probably 8 to 10 years as long as Brian Kelly's there. Maybe putting them at 4 is a little too high for others, but I don't have a problem with it. But here we are, rounding out the top 3, and guess who they have at number 3? Georgia. Yeah, I'll speak on that in a second. I think it's highly disrespectful. At number 2, we got Alabama, and obviously you can figure it out who we got at number 1. We haven't spoke about them. Putting 2 and 2 together, we got the Ohio State. I get it. I understand it. We don't agree on a lot of things, but that's what makes this channel awesome, because it's a bunch of people with a bunch of different opinions. However, I would like to assume we're all in the same boat here on this is a trash list. Ohio State at number 1? Are we serious? You can't even beat Michigan, and that's my problem with Ohio State even being ranked ahead of Michigan, because you haven't beat them the past 2 years, and you were supposed to beat them. You had the better quarterback. You had the better team. Well, now take a look at this year coming up. Michigan, they have their quarterback coming back. They have their running back coming back. So why should I assume that Ohio State's going to beat them this year? I'm not even sold on the fact that Ohio State even deserves or should be ranked ahead of Michigan. Having Bama at number 2, I'll say this, they got it right. But at number 1, what are we doing? Don't overcomplicate this. It is still Georgia. For me, here's how my top 4 would look. I got Georgia number 1, Alabama number 2, Michigan number 3, and Ohio State number 4. That's how I would do it. Beating Ohio State in back-to-back years, it has to account for something. And Michigan has a lot of good players coming back. Trust me when I say this, I would love to sit up here for the next 15 to 20 minutes and talk about this list, but we got to get a move on. Let me know your thoughts about that down below. I am very curious because we may talk about this again tomorrow. Moving along here to our second topic, coincidentally enough, I actually had a Michigan fan send me this news. He sent it to me on Instagram, said, hey man, you should talk about it, and here we are. Like I've told you guys before, if you ever want me to talk about something in a video, either send it to me on Twitter and Instagram, and more than likely, we're going to talk about it. So the news came out yesterday that 5-star tight end Landon Thomas flipped from Georgia to Florida State. For those of you that don't know who this young man is, he was the number 1 tight end in the recruiting class of 2024, and he's been committed to Georgia since 2022 of summer last year, so almost a year. And I've told you guys this time after time, I don't really get involved too much in kids deciding where they want to go to college, and I don't talk about it because number 1, I don't care, but number 2, it doesn't matter. I've never understood it for the life of me when grown men and people in general criticize these kids because they don't want to go to their favorite school or their alumni. And another reason I also don't speak on it too much is because these kids, they decommit like normally 3 or 4 different times. But outside of that, there are a few occasions when we talk about it, and like this example here, the reason we're talking about this is because this is the number 1 tight end in the country, and it's very weird and strange to me because tight ends have thrived at Georgia. Case point and example number 1, look at Darnell Washington last year and look at Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers in next year's draft is going to be a top 5 pick. You can mark it down and take it to the bank, and I'm not sold on the fact that he shouldn't be a top 2 or 3 pick. I'm not going to sit up here and go, well, dang, why wouldn't you want to go to Georgia over Florida State? Because I don't know this guy personally. He probably has a lot of valid reasons as to why he wants to go to Florida State, and they're a good team. That's something to keep your eyes on. It's a big pickup for Florida State, but it's not even a loss for Georgia. I mean, they don't even care. This kid decommitting from Georgia doesn't hurt them a single bit. Let's not try to overhype it. I did want to speak on that though because a lot of people are talking it. But now finally moving on to the main topic, the main encore, the main reason you clicked onto this video. Let's talk about Arch Manning and Quinn Ewers. Let's cut the BS, get straight to the point. You know what happened. Arch Manning, he commits to Texas, and everybody's going, oh man, is there going to be this quarterback battle between Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning? In the offseason about 2 or 3 months ago, Steve Sarkisian said, hey, we're not naming a starter. They're going to have to battle it out. He didn't exactly say that word for word, but he said something along those lines. And with good old Arch Manning coming in the offseason, there were some people saying, hey, maybe he gives Quinn Ewers a run for his money if he comes in and balls out. There were some people out there that thought there could have been a chance, maybe, just a maybe, that Arch Manning could get that starting spot if Quinn Ewers doesn't perform well. And yeah, how do I say this nicely? That conversation, it's over. I'm going to assume if you're not a Texas fan, you really didn't watch the spring game, but I tuned into it, and Quinn Ewers, he looked about as good as he did against Alabama before he got hurt. I've been really high on Quinn Ewers ever since he got to Texas, and I'm still remaining high on him. He didn't have the greatest year last year, but he's a young guy. You got to remember. If you didn't watch the spring game, let's make a long story short. If you watch how he played against Alabama in the first quarter, that's how it looked. All in all, though, in total, very solid numbers. 16 for 23, a $195 through the air, and 1 touchdown. He couldn't have played any better. On the flip side, for the Orange team, Arch Manning was 5 for 13 with 30 yards. I don't want to say Arch Manning was bad, but he looked like a true freshman quarterback. There was nothing to get you wowed up about. I do want to speak on this because it seems like a lot of people are forgetting about this kid. The other quarterback, Malik Murphy, was 9 for 13 with a $165 and a touchdown. I think a lot of people are assuming whenever Quinn Ewers leaves and goes to the NFL, this is going to be Arch Manning's job, but if Malik Murphy doesn't transfer, I'm not too sure about all that. This Malik Murphy kid can play, so don't just assume Arch Manning's going to take that job. Now, after the spring game was over, Steve Sarkisian, he did his little press conference, he did an interview, and he pretty much said, he made it clear that the quarterback competition, it's over, and Quinn Ewers is the starting quarterback. If you are curious, here's what he said word for word. Quote unquote, I think it's pretty clear to say that Quinn's our starting quarterback, and we feel very good about that. He also added, I don't ever want to take the stinger of these other guys that they're not competing for something or that they're not striving for something because they're all talented players. They're great teammates with one another, and I think they appreciate how hard each of them has worked, and I think we're in a very fortunate position to have 3 quality guys in that room that work the way they do. I understand what he's saying completely because if you think about it, it's not necessarily a good thing to name a starting quarterback way ahead of the opener because then your backup quarterback and the third string quarterback, they're like, dang, there's no reason to work hard anymore, and they get a little bit demotivated. I get that point, but at the same time, you do need your starter to get a lot of confidence before that day one start. And any athlete would tell you this if you played any sport. When you know you're starting, there's a certain confidence about it, and it does help you practice. All in all, I think Steve Sarkisian, he handled this well, and naming Quinn Ewers the starting guy right after the spring game, I think it was good timing. But I do want to speak on this. That Texas quarterback room, all 3 of those guys, it's looking eerily similar to when Mac Jones, Tua Tagovailoa, and wait, who was the other? Oh yeah, Jalen Hurts, my bad. How could I forget him? The guy who signed a $250,000 contract when they were all in one locker room at Alabama. As far as it goes for Quinn Ewers heading into year 2, I think this is the year. I think this is the quote-unquote make-or-break season, and I think he's going to make it. I love everything about this kid. I expect him to have a 4,000-yard passing season with 35 touchdowns and only 6 INTs. He's been balling in practice. He balled out in the spring game. I think he's really comfortable. Last year, I didn't think he was comfortable. This year, I think a lot has changed. What's a better way of saying this? Last year for Texas, it kind of felt like they were just playing around and feeling each other out and having fun. It didn't really feel serious because even Texas fans didn't expect to compete for a championship or win 10 or 11 games. Or maybe they did, who knows, you know how those fans are. But this year feels different. It feels more of business-like. It feels like they're taking it 10 times more serious. It feels like the aura around that program is, we got something special here and we need to capitalize. And this is also a very critical year for Steve Sarkisian because last year he got the pass. But this year, if he doesn't win 10 or 11 games, they're going to be looking to fire this man soon. You know how it is at Texas. We know Steve Sarkisian is a great and outstanding offensive coordinator, but can he be a great head coach? That's the real question, because you can't give him an excuse that he doesn't have a great quarterback. He does. I'm very curious, though. Let me know your thoughts down below. But,